What is going on, everyone? Welcome to another very exciting episode right here on the Migardener channel. I'm so glad you guys decided to tune in for this one because in this episode, we're going to be revisiting a topic that you guys have all been asking about, and that is how we grow giant onions. You guys have constantly been begging me to revisit this topic because about 3 or 4 years ago, we filmed our first video on how to grow giant onions. It was a complete growing guide, and the information is still as relevant as it is. It's still as relevant back then as it is today. And so I want to just kind of revisit that topic, bring together all of the different tips and tricks we've talked about in the past, and really just help you guys to grow bigger onions. Because one of the biggest things that I see so many people bringing up in the comment section is, I've done so many things that I thought were right and turned out they were not right. Can you just help to kind of remove the gray area around growing onions? Help just make it super simple for me to understand, and also help me to get onions larger than a ping pong ball. So hopefully that's the goal. If I can do those two things, if I can clear up the gray area and all those question marks and get an onion for you that's larger than a ping pong ball, I've done my job. I've done everything that I set out to do. So that's what we're gonna do. I love doing these videos because I think they really can help a lot of people out. And yes, we've already talked about them before, so if you've seen those videos, I apologize, but there's a whole lot more viewers that have come onto this channel that have no clue about those videos. And while I always encourage people to go back and watch our older videos, the reality is a lot of people don't. A lot of people subscribe and they watch all the newer videos and forget about all the rest. So I hope you don't do that. I hope you do go back and binge watch our other videos. Those are all going to be helpful and very informative. But for those of you that are subscribers that have subscribed in the past year and have no clue about our giant onion growing endeavors, well then, welcome to the channel, and this video will get you caught up. So for context, this is what we're working with here. This is our onion bed. It is 4 feet wide by 12 feet long. It's our standard bed length. In the bed, we applied our cores. We use a method called core gardening. We use it in all of our beds. All of our beds except our perennial strawberry beds, we can't. But all of our other beds that have annual turnover, we apply a core to. That is simply a 10-inch deep trench that we put a straw bale, like a rotted straw bale. We break that up and put it inside the 10-inch deep trench. It's a foot wide by 10 inches deep. We apply that straw there, that rotted wet straw. We cover it up and we plant on top of it. All of the beds get cores. We don't water these beds. We only water in case of a super emergency, and that's when we do water. But we don't actually irrigate these beds. So these beds have not received any water, and this is how large the onions are getting. This onion here is easily 1.5 pounds. Our average sized onion, I would say, is about 3/4 pound to a pound. So what is the first thing that we can do to guarantee larger sized onions? The first thing is called the golden rule of onions. It's the difference between a long day, short day, and intermediate day onion. When you're picking out seeds, you want to make sure that you're picking out a seed that grows in your area. If you're below or south of the 32-degree latitude line, the 32-degree latitude line is what delineates between a long day zone and a short day zone because it's how long the days are. Onions are photosensitive. They bulb based on the daylight, the amount of daylight that they get. So in a location south of the 32-degree latitude line, you need to be growing a short day onion. This means that you're going to be growing an onion that will bulb with less sunlight. If you're growing north or above of the 32-degree latitude line, you're going to need a long day onion. This means that you're going to have a bulbing cycle that is geared more towards more sunlight. Now, it's a very common misconception that short day onions will be smaller because they get less sunlight. This is completely false. This is completely not true. And a prime example of that are Vidalia onions. They are giant onions that can be grown from seed in a short day zone. They come from Vidalia, Georgia, which is about as south as you can get, and they are giant. There's a total misconception. Again, the bulbing cycle is the only thing dictated by the sunlight amount. So if you're in a short day zone or a long day zone, you can still grow giant onions, but you have to look at where you're at on a map. Now that raises the question, what about intermediate day onions? Well, an intermediate day onion is an onion that's bred for both long day and short day zones. However, if you are in a zone that you could grow an intermediate day onion, this is like something very close to the 32-degree latitude line where it's like, I'm not sure if I'm a long day or I'm not sure if I'm a short day. These intermediate day onions tend to be smaller. They'll still get sizable. They'll still be something very respectable when it comes to onions, but they won't get as large as a specifically short day or a specifically long day. So even if you're close to that 32-degree latitude line and you're not sure, or if you're someone that has grown an intermediate day onion before, try just saying, okay, I'm closer to a long day zone than I am a short day zone. Therefore, let's try growing a long day onion. It's worth a shot because if you can make that jump and you can actually go into a specific variety that is a long day or a short day, you just will have bigger onions. It's proven fact because they're bred for that. The next thing is when it comes to seed versus set. So as I just said, when you're picking sets, you want to pick a short day or a long day seed, or a short day or a long day variety. Well, that's when it applies to seeds. A lot of people grow from sets. I never, ever, under any circumstance, recommend growing from sets. And this is because sets are grown and then they're put in storage. The problem with that is onions are a biennial. Biennials mean they flower the second year. Garlic, shallots, chives, any of your alliums, anything in the allium family is going to be a biennial. And this means that when you put them in the ground and they overwinter, they go through a storage period or like a dormancy period, the next year or the next time they come out of dormancy, regardless if it's been a year or not, they think that it's been a whole year and they reset. And instead of bulbing, what they'll do is they'll bulb, but they'll also flower. That flowering process takes a lot of energy away, and that can take away size on the bulb, but it can also take away shelf life on the bulb. So if you're someone that's looking for long storage life onions, like our yellow and our white Utah onions and our yellow Spanish onions, those have a shelf life of like 6 to 7 months. It's just absolutely insane when they're cured properly. Our candy onions, they have a shelf life of like 3 to 4 months, which is still very great for an onion. Don't get me wrong. We'll eat them before then. But if you have a flower that forms on your onion, like I said, not only can that reduce the size of your onion by about 25%, but it also cuts the shelf life by about 50%. The next thing from starting from seed is the varieties are so much more broad. When you're starting from sets, there's not a whole lot available to you. And when you go down to your local hardware store, they might have a yellow, a white, and a red onion. You don't even know what those varieties are. They're just marketed as a yellow onion, a red onion, and a white onion. Who the heck knows what you're even getting or where they're getting them from? And the thing is, I've gotten sets from the store before to try them, and they're marketed as a yellow, red, and a white onion, but you don't even know where those even came from. They might be a short day onion. They might be a long day onion. You don't even know because they don't show where they were actually grown. They don't show the actual variety of them. They're super generic. And that's because at the hardware store or your big box store, they're not looking out for you. They're looking to carry something that you're going to buy. And the fact of the matter is a lot of the people that sell those onions, they don't do their due diligence and they don't do their research, and therefore they don't get a variety that will actually specifically grow for this area. The next thing to consider is spacing. We space our onions out 4 inches apart. Spacing plays a huge role into how large your onions can get. At 4 inches, we find our onions are large enough that we're plenty satisfied with their size, and they're also not growing into themselves. If you space your onions too closely together, they're going to be competing for water and nutrients, which are two things that do contribute to onion size. The more water you can give them, obviously within reason, the larger your onions are going to be. The more nutrients they can access, the healthier they're going to be and the faster they're going to grow, which means more leaves and the larger the onions can be. So those things do play a big role into how big your onions are going to get. So the more they're competing for that space, the more they're going to be competing for those two resources, meaning the smaller they're going to be. So within reason, too close and they're going to compete, and too far and it's going to be wasteful. You can space your onions out 8-10 inches apart, but they're not going to grow a whole lot larger than you do at 4 inches. So it's kind of finding that sweet spot. Now the next secret to growing large onions is making sure that you top them. So topping them is very, very important if you want larger onions, because here's what happens with an onion. When an onion top grows up, it can become very top heavy. And when the top falls over, the neck of the onion, which is the space in between the leaves and the bulb, that's called the neck, it can fall over and crimp. And when that happens, the onion is completely done, regardless of how big it is. So to reduce how top heavy the onion is, we like to come in and prune our onion tops. This is something that competition onion growers will do because it reduces the weight of the leaves. It actually encourages more leaf production and more bulb, larger bulb growth. And it also will, just reduce how much weight is being put on the neck. You can see some of these onions here are pretty much ready for harvest. They're falling over, and we're just waiting for the rest of the onions to fall over before we harvest. But a lot of these onions here, I'll pick one that you can see. This one right here is a good example. This one here, the neck has gotten soft, and as you can see, it is completely fallen over. Now this is about a 3/4 pound onion. It's a beautiful onion by all means, but had we came in here and kept pruning, had we came in here and pruned off all of these leaves here, it would have been a whole lot lighter. It would have had a lot less weight on the neck, and it might have lasted a couple weeks longer, but we were on vacation, we came back, and that happened. So you just get what you can get, but I'm super happy about that size of onion. There's nothing wrong with that whatsoever, and we'll take that all day long. That's a beautiful size onion for the Spanish yellow. So that's a beautiful size onion, not complaining one bit. But again, topping your onions, coming through once a week or twice a week, when you start to see the leaves crimping, when you start to see this, where this leaf coming down is attached to the neck of the onion, and you see this little bend here, come just below the bend and pinch that off. Pinch this off and discard that and leave this attached to the onion, because that way you're going to reduce just how much weight is kind of falling down. With the onion leaves standing straight up, yes, it's top heavy, but it's not nearly as top heavy as something that's bent and crooked. And when it's crooked like that, that's really what puts a lot of pressure on the neck of the onion. So come through, top your onions, and that's going to really expand the life expectancy of your onion. The next tip to getting beautiful, large size onions is weed control. If you have weeds in your bed, the weeds are going to be competing for your onions when it comes to nutrients and water. These are things that are going to contribute to smaller sized onions. So just keep that in mind, that the more you can weed your beds, the more weed free they can be, the better. All right, and so one of the very final tips that I want to leave you guys with is fertilizing. We talk about this all the time, and having proper soil fertility is one of the most important components to having healthy plants and ones that grow quickly. So what you want to do is you want to come through with a very nitrogen-rich fertilizer. We use Trifecta Plus on our garden. We use it in every single bed that we grow in. So regardless of what we're growing in, but nitrogen is very important, and Trifecta Plus has a lot of nitrogen, which makes it a great fertilizer for us. It's great all-purpose. It has nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, trace minerals, and things like that. But use what works for you. Just make sure it has a lot of nitrogen. Blood meal is another great example. Fish fertilizer is another wonderful example. Just make sure that you have a lot of nitrogen, because the secret to getting large onions, like I said, is lots of leaf growth. The more leaves you have, the bigger the onions are going to be. And so often people focus on phosphorus, thinking that phosphorus, well, your onions are like a bulb, right? So I got to focus on root and bulb development, which is phosphorus. It's just not the case. Phosphorus only develops roots. And the problem is, if you give them phosphorus, it's not going to give your bulbs anything to grow with. That's the nitrogen component. The more leaves you have, the bigger they're going to be. So there you go. There is everything you need to know, or everything you probably should know about growing giant onions. Now I know that I probably have not touched on every single question and concern that you have, but if you do have some, post them in the comments box below and I'll try my best to answer them. Make sure to like this video if you did. Make sure to subscribe if you're not yet already. We got a ton more content coming out. And yeah, that's about all I got for you guys today. All right, grow big or go home, everyone. Catch you later. See ya.